Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his warship, 6 eyes gleaming with confidence as he gazed at the blue-green planet below. His chitinous exoskeleton clicked softly as he moved, a sound that had terrified countless species across the galaxy. The Korthax Empire had conquered 47 star systems, and this primitive world would be the 48th. "Sir, the natives call themselves humans," his lieutenant reported, mandibles clicking nervously. "They've only recently achieved spaceflight. Their weapons are chemical-based, their ships fragile metal constructs. They should fall within days." Zektar's primary arms crossed over his thorax, while his secondary arms tapped commands into the holographic display. The humans' military capabilities appeared laughably inadequate compared to the Korthax fleet. Their largest warships were mere toys compared to even his smallest destroyer. They still used projectile weapons and nuclear fission. How quaint. "Begin the standard conquest protocol," Zektar ordered, his voice resonating through the ship's bio-neural network. "Destroy their orbital defenses, then demand surrender. If they resist, we glass their capital cities." The first wave of attack drones launched from the Korthax carriers, sleek biomechanical creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space. They descended toward Earth's atmosphere like a plague of locusts, each one capable of destroying entire city blocks with their plasma weapons. But something strange happened. The humans didn't panic. Their primitive satellites detected the incoming threat, and instead of broadcasting pleas for mercy as every other species had done, they sent a single message to the Korthax fleet. "We see you." That was all. 3 words. No threats, no negotiations, no surrender. Just acknowledgement. Zektar found it amusing. "They're trying to appear brave," he chittered to his bridge crew. "How adorable! Proceed with the attack." The drones entered Earth's atmosphere, their bioshields glowing orange from the friction. They headed for major population centers: New York, London, Beijing, Moscow. The plan was simple: demonstrate overwhelming force, break their spirit, accept their surrender. But the humans had other plans. As the first drone approached Manhattan, something unexpected happened. The city didn't evacuate. Instead, civilians stood on rooftops with handheld devices, recording the alien invaders. Military jets scrambled, not to flee, but to engage. They knew their weapons couldn't penetrate the drones' shields, yet they attacked anyway. "Illogical," Zektar muttered, watching the tactical display. "They must know they cannot win." The first human pilot to engage didn't try to shoot the drone. Instead, he flew his aircraft directly into it. The explosion barely scratched the drone's armor, but it forced the creature to adjust its trajectory. Other pilots followed suit, ramming their planes into the invaders, buying time for something. "Sir," the lieutenant's voice carried a note of confusion, "the humans are... They're not evacuating their cities. They're fortifying them. Civilians are taking up arms. Children are being moved to bunkers while adults prepare to fight. This is not normal behavior for a species facing extinction." Zektar leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. In 47 conquests, he'd never seen anything like this. Most species surrendered immediately when faced with the Korthax's superior technology. The few that fought did so desperately, chaotically. But the humans were organizing, adapting, thinking. The drones reached their targets and began their bombardment. Plasma beams carved through buildings like butter, reducing centuries of human architecture to molten slag. The death toll climbed into the millions within minutes. Yet the humans didn't break. Instead, something else happened. Every nuclear weapon on the planet launched simultaneously. Not at the drones. The humans had already calculated those wouldn't work. They launched them at their own cities, at the locations where the drones were concentrated. "They're destroying their own population centers," the weapons officer exclaimed. "Why would they do that?" The nuclear explosions bloomed across Earth's surface like deadly flowers. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted the drone's bio-neural networks, causing several to crash. The radiation interfered with their organic components. It wasn't enough to stop the invasion, but it slowed it down. And in that delay, Zektar saw something that made his sixth eye twitch, a sign of deep unease among his species. The humans were learning. Ground forces reported encounters with human military units that seemed to have already developed tactics for fighting the drones. They used the urban terrain to their advantage, setting traps, using the drones' own plasma trails to track their movements. They couldn't kill the drones, but they were herding them, controlling where they went. "Impossible," Zektar said. "They've had less than one rotation to study our technology. No species adapts that quickly." But the evidence was undeniable. Human scientists were dissecting destroyed drone components even as their cities burned. Engineers were jury-rigging weapons from salvaged alien technology. Military commanders were sharing information globally, coordinating resistance in a way that transcended old national boundaries. Then came the broadcasts. Instead of propaganda or pleas for help, human media showed something else: tutorials, how to build improvised weapons, how to identify drone weak points, how to treat radiation sickness, how to fight when you cannot win. Every channel, every frequency, every social media platform became a classroom for warfare. Children's shows taught kids how to hide from thermal sensors. Cooking programs demonstrated how to make explosives from household chemicals. Sports commentators analyzed drone movement patterns like they were discussing game strategies. "Sir," the communications officer spoke up, her voice trembling, "we're intercepting billions of human communications. They're not afraid. They're excited." "Excited?" Zektar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "Yes, sir. Many of them seem to view this as a challenge. Some are calling it the most important game in human history. They're keeping score. Cities are competing to see who can disable the most drones. They've turned our invasion into a contest." Zektar stared at the tactical display, watching as red dots representing disabled drones began to appear across the planet. Not many. Not enough to matter in the grand scheme, but more than there should be. More than any other species had managed in the first day of invasion. A new message came from Earth, broadcast on all frequencies. "Round 1 to you, our turn." The commander felt an unfamiliar sensation creeping up his exoskeleton. It took him a moment to recognize it. Doubt. In 47 conquests, he'd never doubted the outcome. But these humans... "Continue the invasion," he ordered, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. "Deploy the second wave." As more drones descended toward Earth, Zektar found himself studying the human response with growing fascination. They didn't fight like prey. They didn't even fight like predators. They fought like something else entirely, something the Korthax had never encountered. When a human soldier ran out of ammunition, he didn't retreat. He picked up a piece of debris and charged. When a human pilot's weapons failed, she used her aircraft as a battering ram. When human civilians were cornered, they didn't cower. They attacked with whatever they could find: tools, vehicles, their bare hands. One report particularly disturbed him. A single human, an elderly female, had somehow disabled a drone using nothing but household cleaning chemicals and what appeared to be a primitive combustion engine. When asked how she knew what to do, she reportedly said, "I watched a YouTube video." "What's a YouTube?" Zektar asked. "A human information sharing network, sir. They use it to distribute knowledge globally. Within the last 6 hours, over 3 billion humans have accessed tactical information about our forces. 3 billion, half their population, learning how to fight the Korthax in real time, sharing every success and failure instantly. The hive mind efficiency of it was terrifying, especially because humans weren't a hive mind. They were individuals, choosing to work together, choosing to share knowledge that could save others even if it couldn't save themselves. The second wave of drones met heavier resistance. Humans had modified their weapons based on first-wave encounters. Crude and improvised, but effective enough to slow the advance. Military units that had been wiped out were replaced by civilians who had watched their tactics and learned from their mistakes. But it was the third report that made Zektar's chest plates rattle with an emotion he'd never felt before. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting music." "Music?" "Yes, sir. Every frequency, alongside the tactical data. Music and laughter." Laughter. They were being invaded by a force that had conquered 47 worlds, and they were laughing. Not the hysteria of madness, but genuine humor. Jokes about the invasion. Memes, they called them. Images comparing the drones to fictional creatures from their entertainment. Strategies discussed in the form of humorous songs. One particular transmission caught his attention. A group of humans had disabled a drone and were taking pictures with it, smiling. The caption read, "First alien visitor to Brooklyn. 1-star review. Very rude. Would not recommend." "They're mocking us," his lieutenant said, astonished. No, Zektar realized. It was worse than that. They weren't taking the Korthax seriously, the greatest military force in the known galaxy. And these primitives were treating it like an inconvenience, a challenge to overcome, a story to tell their offspring. If they had offspring. At the current rate, humanity would be extinct within days. Yet they acted like they were winning. "Sir, new development," the science officer announced. "The humans have launched several hundred primitive spacecraft. They appear to be aimed at our fleet." Zektar checked the readings. The human ships were laughably small, barely more than metal cans with chemical rockets. They posed no threat to the Korthax vessel's shields. "Ignore them," he ordered. "Focus on the ground assault." But he kept one eye on those ascending craft, wondering what the humans thought they could accomplish. Their weapons couldn't penetrate Korthax armor. Their ships couldn't match Korthax speed. It was a futile gesture. Unless... A cold realization crept through Zektar's mind. Every action the humans had taken so far had served a purpose, even the seemingly suicidal ones. They learned, adapted, evolved their tactics in real time. So what were those ships really for? "Scan them," he ordered suddenly. "Full spectrum analysis." The results came back quickly. The ships were exactly what they appeared to be. Primitive spacecraft packed with humans and basic equipment. No weapons worth mentioning. No technology that could threaten the Korthax. But the life signs. "Sir, each ship contains approximately 100 humans. They're all showing elevated stress hormones, but also endorphins? They're stressed, but happy?" Happy. Flying to certain death against an alien armada, and they were happy. "Incoming transmission from the lead human vessel," communications reported. Zektar gestured for it to be played. A human face appeared on the screen, middle-aged by their standards, wearing a primitive spacesuit. He was smiling. "Hello up there," the human said. "I'm Colonel Sarah Chin, and these are Earth's first interstellar ambassadors. We're coming to say hi. Fair warning, though, we're not very good at surrender. Never learned how. Hope that's not a problem." The transmission cut off. "They're insane," the lieutenant breathed. "They're actually insane." But Zektar wasn't so sure anymore. There was something about the human's eyes, a glint that reminded him of something. It took him a moment to place it. He'd seen that look before, in the reflection of his own eyes, when the Korthax had been the small, primitive species fighting against impossible odds, before they'd become conquerors, before they'd forgotten what it was like to be the underdog. The human ships continued their approach, and Zektar found himself gripping the edges of his command throne. Not in anger or frustration, but in something else. Something he hadn't felt in centuries of conquest. anticipation. These humans were going to lose. The math was undeniable. The Korthax had superior numbers, technology, and firepower. But for the first time in 47 conquests, Zektar wasn't sure what victory would look like, or what it would cost. As Earth burned below and human ships climbed toward his fleet, Commander Zektar of the Korthax Empire realized a truth that would haunt him for the rest of his days. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to make sure the Korthax never forgot them. And somehow, that was infinitely more terrifying than any weapon they could have built. The human vessels approached the Korthax fleet like moths drawn to a flame. If moths could broadcast heavy metal music and joke about their impending doom. Commander Zektar watched their approach with all 6 eyes, trying to understand what strategy could possibly justify this suicide run. "Sir, the human ships are separating," his tactical officer reported. "They're spreading out in a pattern. It appears random, but their communications suggest otherwise." The transmissions between human vessels were bizarre. Instead of military protocols, they were sharing what they called playlists and arguing about something called the best pizza toppings for the apocalypse. One ship's crew was apparently holding a poetry contest. "Weapons lock achieved," the weapons officer announced. "Shall we destroy them?" Zektar hesitated. In 47 conquests, he'd never hesitated. But something felt wrong. These humans had proven unpredictable. What if destroying the ships was exactly what they wanted? "Hold fire," he ordered. "Let them approach. I want to see what they're planning." The decision would haunt him. As the human ships drew closer, they began broadcasting on all frequencies. Not military codes or desperate pleas, but stories. Each ship's crew was telling stories about their homes, their families, their dreams. They were creating a record of who they were, transmitted into space for anyone who might listen. "Sir," the communications officer's voice cracked, "Ship Gamma 7 is requesting permission to jam the transmissions. The crew is disturbed." Disturbed. Hardened Korthax warriors who had glassed entire civilizations were disturbed by human stories. But Zektar understood. There was something unsettling about beings who could stare death in the face and respond with art. Then the first human ship did something unprecedented. Instead of attacking or attempting to ram a Korthax vessel, it simply docked, or tried to. The pilot managed to match velocity with destroyer and magnetically attached to its hull like a parasite. "What are they doing?" Zektar demanded. His answer came in the form of hull vibrations. The humans were outside their ship, in primitive spacesuits, with mining equipment. They were trying to drill through the destroyer's armor. It was absurd. Korthax bio-armor could withstand plasma bombardment. Human mining tools might scratch the surface in 1,000 years. Yet there they were, a dozen humans with determination and power tools, attempting the impossible. "Should we activate the hull defenses?" the destroyer's captain asked over comms. "No," Zektar said slowly. "Monitor them. I want to understand." Other human ships followed suit, attaching to various vessels in the fleet. Some crews attempted to hack into external systems with laughably primitive computers. Others seemed to be conducting scientific experiments on the hull material. One group was apparently trying to teach themselves Korthax anatomy by studying the biomechanical integration points. And they were learning fast. "Commander, the team on Destroyer Gamma 7 has identified a maintenance port," Science Officer Veltan reported, her voice tight with disbelief. "They've been attached for less than 40 minutes. How could they find something our enemies usually take years to discover?" The answer came from intercepted human communications. They weren't working alone. Every discovery was instantly shared with Earth. Billions of humans were analyzing the data in real time. Universities had suspended regular classes to focus on alien technology. Children were creating models. Artists were drawing diagrams. Everyone, everywhere, was contributing to humanity's collective understanding of their enemy. "They're crowdsourcing the war," Zektar murmured, the concept both fascinating and terrifying. Meanwhile, on Earth, the situation grew stranger. The remaining drones reported increasingly creative resistance. Humans had discovered that the drones' bio-neural networks could be confused by certain sound frequencies, so they turned every city into a cacophony of noise. Musicians held concerts in war zones. Car alarms blared in synchronized patterns. One city had repurposed its entire cellular network to create a massive electromagnetic interference field. The tactics weren't particularly effective, but they showed something disturbing. Humans viewed warfare as a problem to be solved, not a fate to be accepted. Every failure taught them something new. Every death became a lesson for the living. "Commander, we've lost contact with Surface Unit Theta 9, ground control reported. "Destroyed?" "Unknown. Last report indicated they were being pelted with food products?" Zektar's translator struggled with the concept. Food products? The reconnaissance footage was unbelievable. Humans had discovered that certain Earth proteins caused allergic reactions in Korthak's biology. Within hours of this discovery, every restaurant, every grocery store, every home kitchen had become a weapons depot. Civilians were throwing everything from peanut butter to shellfish at the invaders. One drone had been disabled not by advanced weapons, but by a coordinated assault from what appeared to be a culinary school. The students had somehow aerosolized capsaicin, a chemical from their spicy foods, creating a cloud that irritated the drone's sensory organs. "They're weaponizing their cuisine," Velton said, astonishment clear in her voice. "Who weaponizes food?" But it went beyond that. Humans were weaponizing everything. Farmers turned fertilizer into explosives. Doctors repurposed medical equipment to disrupt biosignatures. Teachers created tactical education programs. Even their entertainment industry had mobilized, with special effects teams creating decoys so convincing that drones wasted ammunition on elaborate hoaxes. And through it all, they maintained their incomprehensible morale. Cities under siege held festivals celebrating each day of survival. Radio stations counted down days since alien invasion, like it was a point of pride. Social media was full of humans sharing their small victories, their clever tricks, their defiant last stands. One video went viral, a term Zektar learned meant rapid information spread. It showed a child, no more than 10 Earth years, explaining to other children how to build a trap for drones using toys and household items. The child ended with, "Remember, they're big and scary, but we're smart and sneaky, and there's a lot more of us than them. A lot more of them." Earth's population was dropping by millions each day, yet the child spoke as if numerical superiority meant something against the Korthak's fleet. It shouldn't have. But somehow it was starting to. "Commander," his strategic analyst spoke carefully, "at current rates we will complete the conquest within 7 days. However, our models didn't account for this level of adaptation. Each day, human resistance becomes 23% more effective. They're learning faster than we're killing them. If this acceleration continues..." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. If human adaptation continued at this rate, by day 7 they might actually pose a threat. It was mathematically unlikely, but no longer impossible. A proximity alert interrupted his thoughts. One of the human ships attached to the fleet was doing something new. Scans showed its crew had died. Oxygen deprivation from a suit breach. But the ship's primitive computer was still active, broadcasting something. "It's a virus, sir," the cyber warfare specialist reported. "Crude but innovative. It's trying to upload human cultural data into our systems. Literature, music, art, history. Petabytes of human experience compressed into a transmissible format." "Block it," Zektar ordered. "I'm trying, sir, but it's not attacking our security. It's just sharing. Our systems don't recognize it as a threat because technically it isn't one. It's just information." Information. The humans were trying to infect the Korthaks with their culture. their thoughts, their essence. Even in death, they were attempting to ensure their species would be remembered, understood, maybe even mourned. Then came the report that changed everything. Commander, priority message from home world. 3 Korthax colony worlds are reporting unusual activity. What kind of activity? Rebellion, sir. Slave species that have been pacified for centuries are suddenly organizing. They're using tactics that seem human-inspired. Improvised weapons, information sharing, coordinated resistance. And, sir, they're broadcasting Earth music. The bridge fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity's resistance was being watched by every enslaved species in the galaxy. Their defiance was spreading like a virus, inspiring others to fight back. The humans weren't just fighting for Earth. They were unknowingly igniting a galactic revolution. How? Zektar's voice was barely a whisper. How are they receiving Earth broadcasts? Unknown, sir, but intercepted communications suggest human hackers have been purposely broadcasting on every frequency they can find, hoping someone would hear. They call it going viral across the cosmos. Viral. Like a disease. Like an idea that couldn't be stopped once it started spreading. Another human ship made contact with the fleet. This one managing to breach an airlock before its crew was neutralized. But not before they'd done something unprecedented. They'd left gifts. Food from Earth, pictures of their families, handwritten notes in broken Korthax script that said things like, "We could have been friends and hope you like chocolate." The boarding team that found them reported something disturbing. The humans hadn't died fighting. They died smiling, surrounded by their offerings of peace, having accomplished their mission of proving that humanity could have been different, could have been allies if given the chance. They're making us the monsters, Zektar realized aloud. Every action we take, they turn into proof of their nobility. Every death becomes a testament to their courage. They're not trying to win the war. They're trying to win the story. And they were succeeding. Already reports were coming in of Korthax soldiers requesting transfers away from Earth duty. Some claimed illness, others equipment malfunctions. The truth was simpler and more damaging. They were developing respect for their enemy. Some were even experiencing guilt. The Korthax had conquered through fear for millennia. But humans were teaching them something new, how it felt to be feared, to be the villains in someone else's story. And that fear was spreading through the fleet like the humans' cultural virus, infecting minds that had never questioned their right to conquer. Sir, Veltan approached quietly. Permission to speak freely? Zektar nodded, too disturbed to maintain normal protocol. I've been studying their history. The humans have a concept called Pyrrhic victory, winning at such great cost that it becomes a defeat. I believe they're trying to make Earth our Pyrrhic victory. Even if we take their world, the cost in morale, in stability across the Empire, in our own self-perception, we might never recover. She was right. Zektar could feel it in the restless clicking of his crew, see it in the way they avoided looking at the screens showing Earth's continued resistance. The humans were losing every battle, but somehow winning the war for the soul of the Korthax Empire. A new transmission from Earth interrupted his dark thoughts. It was from their United Military Command, what remained of it. A human general, missing an arm and broadcasting from what appeared to be a subway tunnel, delivered the message. Day 3 of the invasion. Casualties approaching 2 billion. Military forces at 15% capacity. He paused and, despite everything, smiled. Morale remains high. Recommendation to Korthax Command. Surrender now while you still can. This offer expires when we figure out how your FTL drives work. And we're close. Very close. Humanity out. The transmission ended with the sound of laughter in the background. They're bluffing, Zektar's lieutenant said. They must be. No species could maintain morale under these conditions. But looking at the data, at the continued resistance, At the creative adaptations happening in real time, Zektar wasn't sure anymore. The humans had turned their entire planet into a laboratory for warfare innovation. Every survivor was a researcher. Every death provided data. Every second brought them closer to understanding Korthak's technology. And they were happy about it. Not resigned, not desperate, but genuinely excited by the challenge. "What kind of species evolves to find joy in impossible odds?" Zektar asked the empty air. His answer came from an unexpected source. The human ships still attached to his fleet had never stopped broadcasting their stories. One transmission stood out. A young human, barely an adult by their standards, speaking to the camera in her final moments. "You know what's funny?" she said, blood floating in the zero gravity from a suit rupture. "My whole life, people told me I'd never amount to anything. Too small, too weak, too average. But here I am, farther from Earth than any human in history, about to die attacking an alien empire. And I helped discover 3 vulnerabilities in their hull design. Me, Jenny Chen from Nowhere Special. I matter. We all matter. That's what you aliens don't get. Every single one of us would rather die as heroes than live as slaves, and there's 8 billion more where I came from." The transmission cut to static as her oxygen ran out. 8 billion heroes, 8 billion individuals who would rather die attempting the impossible than surrender to the inevitable. 8 billion problems for the Korthaks to solve, each one learning from the other's successes and failures. "Commander," the tactical officer's voice carried a new note. Fear. "The humans have launched something from their moon base, multiple projectiles, moving at significant fraction of light speed. They appear to be rocks?" Rocks. The humans were throwing rocks at the fleet. Kinetic weapons, primitive but effective if they hit. They'd turned their moon into a catapult. "Evasive maneuvers!" Zektar ordered, though the fleet could easily dodge such primitive attacks. But that wasn't the point, was it? The humans weren't trying to hit them. They were demonstrating capability, showing that they could strike back, that no place in the solar system was safe from human ingenuity. And in that moment, watching rocks fly through space while humans sang war songs and told jokes in the face of extinction, Commander Zektar of the mighty Korthak's empire felt something his species hadn't experienced in 1,000 years of conquest. Doubt in their own superiority. The humans were still going to lose. The math remained unchanged. But math couldn't calculate the cost in fear. In doubt, in the slow poison of respect for an enemy that refused to acknowledge defeat. As Earth burned and humans died by the millions, as their primitive ships buzzed around his fleet like annoying insects, as their rocks flew through space and their culture spread like wildfire through the galaxies oppressed, Zektar understood a terrible truth. The humans weren't just fighting a war, they were teaching the universe how to fight the Korthaks. And that lesson would outlive them all. The 4th day of the invasion began with a transmission from Earth. It was a child's drawing, broadcast on all frequencies, showing humans and aliens holding hands under a rainbow. The caption, written in crayon and somehow perfectly translated, read, "What we could have been." And for the first time in his long career of conquest, Commander Zektar wondered if winning was worth the price of being forever remembered as the monster in a child's nightmare. Day 7 of the invasion arrived with an impossible statistic. Despite losing 3 billion souls, despite having every major city reduced to radioactive glass, despite facing technology centuries beyond their own, human resistance had increased by 400%. Commander Zektar stared at the numbers, his 6 eyes unable to process what they meant. His analysts tried to explain using terms like exponential learning curves and distributed intelligence networks, but the reality was simpler and more terrifying. Humans got stronger when you hurt them. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the home fleet," his communications officer announced, antennae drooping with exhaustion. The rebellion has spread to 17 systems. The Varkath are using human guerrilla tactics. The Selenites are broadcasting what they call freedom songs. Even the quiet ones are no longer quiet. The quiet ones. A species so thoroughly broken by centuries of enslavement that they'd forgotten their own name. Now they were singing human battle hymns and building improvised weapons. Also, sir, the officer continued hesitantly, 3 Korthax colony worlds are reporting civilian unrest. Our own people are questioning the war. Some are calling the humans the unbreakable ones and suggesting we should negotiate. Negotiate. With a species they were actively exterminating. The concept would have been absurd a week ago. Now, as Zektar watched another human rocket launch from their devastated planet, this one made from salvaged drone parts and what appeared to be duct tape, he wondered if absurdity had become wisdom. The latest human attack was their most audacious yet. They'd captured a damaged drone, somehow reprogrammed it, and sent it back to the fleet with a simple message. We fixed your drone. It was broken. Now it knows how to feel joy. You're welcome. The drone was indeed broadcasting joy. Pure biochemical joy, extracted from human brain chemistry and translated into Korthax neural patterns. Every warrior who interfaced with it reported the same disturbing effect. For a brief moment they felt what humans felt. The determination, the defiance, the strange pleasure in facing impossible odds. Several warriors had to be sedated after experiencing it. One was found trying to write poetry. Commander, urgent report from Earth Sector 7, Ground Control interrupted. The humans they've done something impossible. Another impossibility? Zektar clicked his mandibles wearily. What now? They've captured the Devastator. Silence descended on the bridge like a physical weight. The Devastator was their most advanced ground unit, a biomechanical titan that had never been successfully opposed in 47 conquests. It could adapt to any attack, heal from any damage, learn from any tactic. "Show me," Zektar demanded. The footage was grainy, captured by dying surveillance drones. It showed the Devastator cornered in what had once been Tokyo, surrounded by millions of humans. Not soldiers, civilians. Men, women, children, elderly, all moving with eerie coordination. They weren't attacking. They were hugging it. Millions of humans pressed against the Devastator's armor, their bodies preventing it from moving without crushing them. And it couldn't. Its programming wouldn't allow it to harm non-combatants who weren't actively threatening it. They're exploiting our rules of engagement, Veltan breathed. How did they know? The answer came from intercepted communications. A child, always the children with these humans, had noticed that drones avoided harming those who couldn't fight back. Within hours, the information had spread globally. Humanity had turned the Korthax's own honor against them, but it was what happened next that broke something in Zektar's mind. The humans began to sing, millions of voices, dozens of languages, but somehow in harmony. They sang to the Devastator, treating it not as a monster, but as a lonely creature far from home. Children drew pictures on its armor with chalk. Adults left food at its feet. Elderly humans sat nearby, telling it stories about Earth. For 3 hours, they loved it. And the Devastator, a perfect killing machine that had ended civilizations, began to malfunction. Its bio-neural network, designed to process threats and tactics, couldn't handle the input. Love was not in its programming. Kindness was an undefined variable. When it finally shut down, collapsing to its knees in the rubble of Tokyo, the humans cheered. Then they began to disassemble it, carefully, respectfully, like doctors performing surgery. They recorded everything, shared everything, learned everything. In 3 hours, they turned our greatest weapon into a teacher, Zektar said, his voice hollow. They defeated it with a hug. Reports flooded in from across the planet. Humans had developed countermeasures for every Korthak's weapon, not through superior technology, but through insane creativity. They'd learned to predict drone movements by studying their turning patterns. They'd discovered that Korthak's shields had a microsecond gap during phase transitions. They'd even figured out how to brew a tea from earth plants that neutralized the effects of Korthak's stun weapons. "Sir," the science officer interrupted urgently, "the human spacecraft we detected launching yesterday, they're not attack vehicles." "Then what are they?" "Colony ships, sir, made from salvaged alien technology and human engineering. They're evacuating survivors. But not just evacuating. They're heading for every inhabited system in the galaxy. They're spreading. Spreading. Like spores. Like a virus. Like an idea whose time had come. Each ship carried a message, broadcast on all frequencies. To all species suffering under oppression, we are humanity. We are coming. We bring music, laughter, and the absolute certainty that no empire lasts forever. Hold on." "They're seeding rebellion across the galaxy," Veltan said. "Even if we glass Earth, even if we kill every human in this system, we can't catch them all. In trying to destroy them, we've given them the stars." The irony was perfect and terrible. The Korthaks had uplifted humanity from a single planet to a galactic presence. Every world those colony ships reached would learn human tactics, human spirit, human refusal to accept defeat. But it was the next report that truly shattered Korthak's morale. "Commander," the cultural analyst's voice shook, "the humans are building monuments." "Monuments?" "To us, sir. To the Korthak soldiers who've died in the invasion. They're collecting our fallen, performing what they call proper burial rites, and building memorials. Each one has a plaque that reads, 'They were someone's child, too.'" The bridge crew recoiled at the concept. Honoring enemy dead? The Korthaks had never considered such a thing. But humans, even while being exterminated, took time to mourn their killers. "There's more, sir. They've been studying our biology from the fallen. Not for weapons, but for medicine. They've developed treatments for common Korthak's ailments. They're broadcasting the medical data freely. They say it's for any Korthaks who might need it in the future. They call it preparing for peace." Preparing for peace. While dying by the billions, humans were preparing for a peace they'd never see. "Commander Zektar," a familiar voice crackled over communications. "This is Colonel Sarah Chen. Remember me? First human to reach your fleet. I'm still alive, surprisingly. Bit radiation sick, but alive. I have a proposition." Zektar found himself responding before he could stop. "Speak. You've noticed by now that you can't really beat us, right? Oh, you can kill us all, sure. But you can't beat us. Every dead human creates 10 more believers in the cause. Every destroyed city becomes a symbol. Every atrocity you commit teaches the galaxy how to hate you. So here's my offer. Let's skip to the end." "The end?" "The part where we're friends. Might take 100 years, might take 1,000. But eventually your empire will fall. They all do. And our species will meet as equals. We'll share drinks, swap stories, maybe even laugh about this whole thing. So why not skip the boring middle part where billions die and go straight to being friends?" "You're losing," Zektar said, though the words felt empty. "Your planet burns. Your people die. And yet here you are, talking to me instead of shooting. Curious, isn't it? You want to know what we know, Commander. You want to understand how a species can laugh at death and make friends with doom. I'll tell you the secret. The one thing that makes humans unbeatable. Tell me, we've already lost everything countless times. Every human alive is descended from survivors of disasters, plagues, wars, heartbreaks. We're the children of those who endured the unendurable. Loss isn't new to us. It's our oldest friend. You can't break us with suffering, because suffering is how we learn to be human." The transmission paused. And when Chen spoke again, Her voice carried warmth despite everything. But you know what else we learned? How to rebuild, how to forgive, how to turn enemies into friends. We've had wars where millions died, and a generation later our grandchildren were marrying each other. We're really, really good at moving on. So I'll ask again, want to skip to the part where we're friends? Even after all this death? Zektar asked, genuinely curious. You would forgive? Forgive? Commander, we're already writing historical fiction where you're the misunderstood heroes. There's a kid in Mumbai, well, what's left of Mumbai, who's drawn a comic book where a Korthax warrior and a human soldier team up to fight space pirates. It's quite good. The Korthax warrior is named Steve. Steve. The kid thought it sounded alien. Point is, we're already imagining a future where we're allies. Can you imagine that future, Commander? Can your people? Zektar looked around his bridge. His crew was listening, antennae raised, eyes wide. They'd conquered galaxies, but never imagined friendship with their victims. The concept was so alien, so impossibly human. Another emergency alert flashed. Human hackers had penetrated the fleet's entertainment systems, but instead of military viruses, they'd uploaded human entertainment, movies, music, games, art, petabytes of culture flooding Korthax databases. Sir, should we purge the systems? The cyber warfare officer asked. Before Zektar could respond, another officer spoke up. Wait, this music is pleasant. What do they call it? Jazz, sir. Something called jazz. All across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Warriors meant to be focused on destruction found themselves distracted by human stories, human songs, human dreams. One destroyer reported its entire crew had stopped to watch something called a cat video. They're not fighting our bodies anymore, Veltan said quietly. They're fighting for our souls. The seventh day ended with a sight that would haunt Korthax history forever. As the sun set on Earth's burning continents, humans emerged from their shelters. Billions of them, injured, irradiated, dying, but standing. And they sang. One song, transmitted globally, performed by what remained of humanity. Not a war anthem or a dirge, but something called Ode to Joy. They sang it in every language, with every voice, their song reaching into space where the Korthax fleet listened in stunned silence. Children sang while missing limbs. Soldiers sang while bleeding out. Scientists sang while their laboratories burned. They sang as if victory was assured, as if tomorrow was certain, as if joy itself was an act of rebellion against despair. End it, Zektar whispered. Sir, Veltan asked, end the invasion. Recall all forces. But sir, we're winning. Are we? Zektar's roar silenced the bridge. Are we winning? Our empire fractures, our subjects rebel, our own warriors question our purpose? We came to conquer a primitive world and instead found teachers who are showing the galaxy how to destroy us with hope, how to defeat us with kindness, how to make us doubt everything we are. He stood, all four arms trembling with an emotion he couldn't name. We could glass their world, yes, kill every human, yes, but their ideas, their spirit, their absolute insistence that existence should be joyful even in the face of death? How do we kill that? How do we conquer a species that treats its own extinction as an opportunity to teach the universe about courage? The bridge remained silent. We are the Korthax Empire, Zektar continued. We have conquered 47 worlds, but today we have been conquered by an idea. The idea that strength isn't about winning, but about how you face losing. The humans have infected us with doubt, with respect, with the terrible knowledge that we are the monsters in this story. And monsters can choose to change. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to Earth, all frequencies. The connection established, showing a human command center where exhausted officers maintain their posts, despite everything. An elderly human general, the same one who'd offered surrender terms to the Korthax days ago, appeared on screen. "Commander Zektar," the general said, somehow managing a slight smile. "Ready to surrender?" The absurdity of it, the losing side asking for the victor's surrender, broke something in Zektar. For the first time in his life, the commander of the Korthax fleet laughed. Not the harsh clicking his species called laughter, but something new, something learned from watching humans. Joy in the face of absurdity. "General," Zektar said, "we need to talk about the future, the real future, the one where your colony ships are already spreading your madness across the galaxy, the one where every species we've enslaved is learning your songs, the one where my own warriors are asking why we fight instead of build." The general leaned forward. "Go on. You've won. Not the war. You've definitely lost that. But something worse. You've won the argument. You've proven that the Korthax way, the way of conquest and fear, creates nothing but future defeats. Every world we've taken will eventually rebel, inspired by Earth's example. We'll spend eternity fighting the ghost of humanity's defiance. So what do you propose?" Zektar did something no Korthax commander had ever done. He exposed his throat, the universal gesture of submission among his people. "Teach us. Teach us how to be something other than conquerors. Teach us how you find joy in darkness and hope in defeat. Teach us how to be human." The general was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his staff looked equally stunned. Then slowly he smiled, that inexplicable human expression that could mean so many things. "The first lesson is free, Commander. Being human isn't about winning. It's about getting back up. It's about choosing hope when logic says despair. It's about finding family in the strangest places. Sometimes even in the eyes of those who came to destroy you." "And the second lesson?" "The second lesson will cost you. Full withdrawal, reparations for the damage, technology sharing to help us rebuild, and pizza. Pizza. It's a human food. We'll teach you to make it. Trust me, it's worth it." For the second time, Zektar laughed. Around him, his bridge crew made similar sounds, testing out this new expression of emotion. "You realize," Zektar said, "this is unprecedented. No conquered species has ever made terms with the Korthax." "Well," the general shrugged, "humanity's pretty unprecedented. Besides, we weren't conquered. We were just really aggressive about making new friends." As Korthax ships began to withdraw from Earth's scarred skies, as colony ships carried human survivors and human ideas to every corner of the galaxy, as the empire that had stood for millennia began its transformation, Commander Zektar reflected on the war's true outcome. Humanity had lost 3 billion people. They'd lost cities, nations, and irreplaceable treasures. But they'd gained something worth more than all of that. They'd gained the stars, the respect of their enemies, and proof of what they'd always suspected, that humans were unstoppable, not because they couldn't die, but because they refused to let death have the last word. Years later, when Zektar's memoirs were published across the galaxy, they would begin with a simple line that became famous among 100 species. "When I went to war with humans, everything I knew about fear changed. I learned that the most terrifying thing in the universe isn't the species that can't be beaten. It's the species that turns being beaten into victory." And in a small restaurant on New Tokyo Station, where human refugees and Korthax engineers worked side by side to rebuild what war had destroyed, someone had hung a sign that captured the whole impossible truth. Humans, turning enemies into friends since forever. Ask about our group discount on existential crises. Below it, in smaller text, someone had added, "Pizza half price for former invaders. Bring your own antacids." The age of conquest was over. The age of extremely aggressive friendship had begun. And somewhere in the void, colony ships full of human survivors sang their way between the stars, carrying a message of hope to every oppressed world. You are not alone. We're coming, and we bring really good recipes. The galaxy would never be the same, neither would the Korthax. And in the end, that was humanity's greatest victory. Not surviving the war, but making sure that afterward, no one could remember why they'd been enemies in the first place. As Commander Zektar would often say in his later years while teaching Korthax younglings how to make pizza, "We came to conquer Earth. Earth conquered us with kindness. And honestly, best defeat we ever had." The younglings would click their mandibles in laughter, unable to imagine a time when humans and Korthax weren't allies, which was perhaps the most human victory of all, making the impossible seem inevitable, and making friends of those who never knew they needed friendship. In the end, Earth's children had done what they always did. They endured, they adapted, and they made the universe a little stranger, a little kinder, and a lot more interesting. And they never did explain why pineapple on pizza was such a controversial topic. Some mysteries, it seemed, transcended species.